The black void above Earth burned with light. Thousands of alien ships filled the sky, their hulls glowing with energy, their weapons humming like thunder. Every nation on Earth had gone silent that night. From deserts to oceans, people looked up and saw the impossible, an entire armada hovering above the planet. The Galactic Council had arrived. The Council's voice came through every broadcast, translated into hundreds of human languages. Species 727 Human Civilization. You stand accused of violating Interstellar Code 5.3. Expansion without sanction. Prepare for judgment. The tone was calm, almost kind, but the meaning behind it was death. In orbit, Earth's defense fleet, small, scattered, underpowered, waited. Old metal and patched reactors faced ships that looked like gods had built them. Still, the humans didn't back down. The UNS Dawn, an aging cruiser with scorched paint and a patched hull, moved to the front of the formation. On its bridge, Commander Avery watched the alien fleet with a steady gaze. He was outnumbered 1,000 to 1. "Commander, the Council ship is charging its weapons," his officer said. Avery nodded. "Let them. They think we'll run." The alien ship shifted into attack formation, their sleek bodies gleaming like blades. Then, before they could fire, the Dawn moved. Its engines roared and a burst of bright light split from its hull. A thin signal beam shot across space, bouncing between the alien ships. Within seconds, every Council ship's targeting system went dark. Panic erupted among the alien crews. Their sensors glitched. Their guidance systems failed. The Dawn had hacked their entire front line using nothing more than a pulse of old Earth code, one the aliens had dismissed as primitive radio noise. Avery smiled. "They studied our weapons, not our minds." The alien flagship sent a message. "Cease your interference, human. You face the Galactic Council." "Then you'll face what made us," Avery replied. "We survived our own world before we ever saw yours. The human fleet didn't fire. They didn't need to." In that moment, every alien commander watching realized something dangerous. The humans weren't afraid. The Council didn't destroy Earth that night. Instead, they summoned humanity to answer before the Chamber of Judgment. They wanted to understand how a species with rusting ships and fragile lives could look into the eyes of gods and refuse to kneel. Weeks later, the chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with 1,000 different forms of life. Light shimmered through tall crystal pillars that rose above a sea of delegates. Their voices merged into one low hum that filled the air like an ocean of sound. In the center, surrounded by the galaxy's oldest civilizations, stood a single human, Ambassador Hale. He had no armor, no weapons, only a plain gray uniform and calm eyes. Holograms displayed Earth behind him, its blue surface surrounded by the still hovering alien fleet. A voice echoed through the chamber, belonging to the Council's speaker, a being made of light and shadow. "Humanity of Earth, you stand before the Council of Worlds to answer for your aggression. You expand, you arm, you refuse submission. Do you understand the risk of your defiance?" Hale looked up. "We understand the risk, but submission was never part of our story." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. One delegate, scaled and red-eyed, hissed, "You are reckless. You will destroy yourselves." "Maybe," Hale said, "but we've destroyed worse and survived. Our world taught us that peace isn't the absence of struggle. It's the ability to stand when everything tells you to fall." A crystalline being beside the speaker flickered with irritation. "You speak of survival as if it were virtue." Hale's gaze didn't waver. "Where we come from, survival is how we learned virtue. Fire, storms, disease, war. We were shaped by them. We didn't evolve to rule. We evolved to endure." The speaker leaned forward, light swirling in its eyes. "Endure against the universe?" Hale smiled faintly. "Against anything that underestimates us." The council chamber fell silent. Every species present felt the weight of his words. They had seen what humanity could do in the void, how their old technology had tricked fleets built over millennia, how their fragile minds held more will than entire empires. The speaker finally said, "Then you must be tested. If you truly wish to be recognized as a civilized member of the council, you will send one of your young to the Galactic Academy of Concord. They will learn among our children. If they succeed, Earth will be accepted. If they fail, humanity will be exiled from the stars." Hale didn't hesitate. "We accept." The speaker blinked in surprise. "Without discussion? Without knowing what awaits?" Hale's voice was steady. "We learn fast." A low murmur rippled again. To the Council, humanity's acceptance sounded like arrogance. To the humans, it was simply how they'd always lived, facing the unknown head-on. The session adjourned. As Hale turned to leave the chamber, one alien representative, a tall creature of feathers and smoke, called out, "Who will you send?" Hale paused. "Someone who knows how to look at fear and keep walking." Back on Earth, the selection began. Thousands of candidates were tested, not for strength or intelligence, but for something harder to define. The one who stood out was not a soldier or a scientist. She was a quiet girl from a small coastal town, known mostly for surviving things she shouldn't have. Her name was Lyra Wren. The officials asked her if she was afraid of leaving Earth. She simply said, "I've lived on Earth. How much worse can space be?" Days later, she boarded the small transport bound for the Galactic Academy. The ship rose through the atmosphere, breaking through the last layer of blue into the endless dark. Below her, Earth glowed, bright, stubborn, alive. As she looked down, a message came through from Ambassador Hale, transmitted directly from the council chambers. His voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of warning. "They think this will humble us. Let them. You don't need to prove we're better, Lyra. Just remind them what we are." Lyra looked at her reflection in the glass, the stars stretching like rivers of fire around her. "And what are we?" she asked softly. There was a pause before Hale's reply came through the static. "We're the species that learned to fight back against our own world. That's all they need to know." The transmission ended and the stars ahead grew brighter. The Academy was waiting, a place filled with species who believed they had mastered fear, discipline, and control. They didn't understand yet that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't power or intelligence. It was the refusal to surrender, even to the universe itself. As Lyra's ship entered the jump gate, her heart stayed calm. Around her, alien light shimmered, folding space like a mirror. She didn't flinch. She didn't pray. She simply watched the stars vanish into a blur, ready to meet whatever waited on the other side. Far behind her, on the edge of Earth's orbit, the alien fleets remained, silent, unmoving. They had come to judge humanity and left uncertain of their victory. Inside the council chamber, the speaker turned to its advisors. "They accepted too quickly," it said. "The test was meant to break them." One advisor, old and translucent, replied, "Perhaps it will." The speaker's eyes dimmed. "Or perhaps it will break us." And across the stars, the human ship carrying Lyra Wren continued forward into the unknown, a small spark of defiance in the heart of the galaxy. Above the pale curve of Earth, the stars trembled with motion. Dozens of alien warships appeared from folded space, their engines glowing in sickly colors. The people below saw streaks of light in the night sky and thought it was a meteor shower. It wasn't. It was a test. The Galactic Council had sent a strike fleet, not to destroy but to remind humanity who ruled the stars. At the command center, buried beneath the Pacific Defense Arc, alarm screamed. Commander Ross stood before a holographic map, filled with red dots descending toward orbit. "Council fleet approaching," his officer said, voice shaking. "They've entered the thermosphere. 17 destroyers, 2 dreadnoughts." Ross didn't blink. "Activate the shield lattice." "But sir, the lattice was never meant for direct combat." "Do it anyway." Outside, a faint grid of light spread over Earth's atmosphere. It was a network of satellites built for communication, not war. But humans had learned how to make anything into a weapon. The alien ships opened fire, beams of pure plasma burning through clouds and oceans. The lattice caught the first volley, bending the energy through refractive loops and sending it back. The aliens' own plasma blasts twisted in space and struck 2 of their ships. On every alien channel, confusion erupted. "Their planet redirected our weapons," someone shouted. "That's not possible." Ross leaned on the console, calm despite the shaking floor. "They always say that," he murmured. "Until it is." The council fleet pulled back. They hadn't expected Earth to fight smart. Humanity didn't match the galaxy in technology, but they were clever with scraps, relentless with ideas. The aliens left without a second strike. Earth had proven again that it could not be bullied. Days later, far from home, the small human ship carrying Lyra Wren emerged from warp near the Galactic Academy of Concord. The view filled her screen, an enormous structure shaped like a floating city, orbiting a red-white nebula. The academy shone like a crystal hive with towers and platforms stretching for miles, each one connected by glowing bridges. Ships of hundreds of different species arrived and departed every minute. Lyra's ship was the smallest among them. When her vessel entered the docking bay, thousands of alien eyes turned to look. She felt their stares even before she stepped out. The announcement of Earth's trial had spread across the galaxy. Now every species wanted to see the creature from the death world. The air inside the docking corridor was colder, thinner than she was used to. She adjusted her breathing and walked forward. Guards watched her from behind their helmets. Students whispered in their alien tongues. Some laughed, some hissed, but none came close. At the center of the arrival platform stood an instructor made of translucent blue crystal. His voice was a harmonic vibration that echoed inside the skull. Human student Lyra Wren, you have been accepted to the Galactic Academy under probationary status. You are expected to observe, not disrupt. You will obey every directive without question. Lyra nodded. Understood. He tilted his crystalline head. Your species is known for rebellion. I trust that reputation will not continue here. Lyra gave a faint smile. That depends on how you define rebellion. The crystal being paused, then turned sharply. Follow me. She was led through long corridors lined with banners of alien empires. Every creature she passed stared at her, some in curiosity, some in fear. The floor shimmered beneath her boots. She saw reflections of clawed feet, scaled tails, feathered wings, and now, her own human outline walking among them. Her quarters were small, but clean. Through the window, she could see the nebula's light rippling across the Academy's hull. She sat on the bed and listened to the faint hum of distant engines. Somewhere beyond those walls were hundreds of species that saw humans as primitive, reckless, unstable. She wondered what they would do when they realized how wrong they were. The next morning began with orientation. The lecture hall was enormous, shaped like an arena. Students of all kinds filled the seats. The air buzzed with whispers when Lyra entered. On the central platform stood Professor Tivar, the same crystalline being who had greeted her. Today, he said, his voice ringing through the chamber, we begin with an assessment of emotional control. Each of you will face a creature that feeds on fear. The Hthar beast, a species engineered to dominate through instinct. It cannot be deceived. It cannot be reasoned with. The lights dimmed. A massive steel gate rose, and the sound that followed was not a roar, but a vibration that made every heart skip. The beast emerged from the shadows, 6 meters tall, plated with chitin, claws like blades, eyes that glowed white. The alien students shifted uneasily. One by one, they were called to stand before the barrier for a few seconds. The first student fainted after 3 seconds. The second ran. The third screamed until the guards pulled him away. The creature seemed to enjoy their terror. Then the professor turned. Human, the hall went silent. Lyra stepped forward, slow and steady. The floor trembled beneath the beast's weight. It turned toward her, its nostrils flaring. The glass between them flickered as the energy sensors overloaded. The creature roared, a sound that felt like the end of the world. Lyra didn't move. She stared straight into its eyes. The hall's lights dimmed further and the sound died away. The beast's breathing slowed. Then before everyone's eyes, it stepped back. Gasps filled the room. The creature was trembling. Tivar's crystalline form glowed in confusion. What did you do? Lyra didn't answer. She only said, it saw something it recognized. The professor signaled to shut down the test, but the systems refused. The sensors surrounding the containment dome burned out one by one. Alarms flashed. The beast was pacing, restless, but it no longer looked at the professor or the guards. It only looked at her. Security drones swarmed the area. One alien student whispered, it's afraid of her. The words spread like lightning. Afraid. The fear-eater was afraid. When the room finally emptied, Tivar approached her quietly. Human, he said. Do you understand what just occurred? I think so, she replied. It's not about strength. It's about memory. The professor's glow dimmed. Explain. Lyra looked through the glass at the creature still trembling in its corner. On Earth, there are predators that learn to hide from us. Even now, their instincts remember the first time they met something they couldn't break. Maybe your beast remembers too. That night, as Lyra sat alone in her quarters, she received a message from Earth. It wasn't from any official channel. It was a personal transmission from Commander Ross. The signal was weak, grainy, distorted by distance. "Lyra," the voice said. "The Council sent another fleet near Mars. They're testing us again. But we're holding. Don't forget who you are out there. They'll try to make you doubt what humans are. Don't let them." She closed the message and looked out the window. Beyond the nebula, she could see faint lights, ships moving in formation. The galaxy was watching her, waiting to see if the human experiment would fail. In the darkness, she whispered to herself, "They think they're testing me. They don't know I'm testing them too." Far across the academy, the HFY beast lay restless in its containment cell. Its glowing eyes stared at the door, waiting. When the guards checked the monitors, they saw it moving in circles, agitated, as if searching for someone, and miles away, the human girl it feared closed her eyes and dreamed of Earth, the storms, the predators, the endless fight to survive, the place that had made her what she was. Somewhere deep in its memory, the beast remembered that world too, and it trembled. The blackness above Mars broke apart as fire streaked through the void. The alien fleet had come again, sleek ships like silver blades sliding through the cold. They came silently, but their intent was clear. The Galactic Council wanted to remind Earth who ruled space. This time, the humans didn't wait to be hit first. From Mars orbit, Admiral Rian watched the enemy move. The Council fleet was twice the size of the last. Their shields shimmered with colors no human spectrum could name. "They think we're predictable," Ryan said. "Let's prove we're not." On his command, the human defense array ignited. Hundreds of small black drones detached from the Martian moons. They had no weapons, no lights, just silence and dark paint. The alien ships didn't even register them as threats. But inside each drone pulsed a network of linked processors, a swarm intelligence that mirrored the old structure of ant colonies from Earth. As the alien fleet approached, the swarm activated. Thousands of invisible signals crossed the vacuum, turning into waves of electronic interference. The alien command systems began to glitch. Holograms distorted. "Engines misfired, sir. They're jamming us." One alien officer shouted aboard the Council dreadnought. The alien commander stared at the flickering screens. "Impossible. This is primitive human code. It shouldn't be working." But it did. Within minutes, the fleet's guidance systems fell apart. Their ships drifted off formation, colliding and spinning. The human swarm never fired a single shot. It simply outthought caused them. Admiral Ryan watched in silence. "We don't win by power," he said softly. "We win by remembering who we are." When the last alien ship retreated into folded space, Earth's flagships held their ground. The victory wasn't about destruction. It was about message. Humanity didn't bow, not even to the Council. Across the galaxy, in the shining halls of the Galactic Academy, the news spread quickly. Every alien student whispered about the humans, the stubborn, impossible species that kept surviving. And in the middle of those whispers walked Lyra Wren. She had become a rumor of her own. The story of the HFY beast had traveled faster than light, told in a dozen languages. Some said she controlled it, others said she killed it. The truth was stranger. It had looked into her eyes and stepped back. Professor Tivar summoned her again. His crystalline body glimmered with faint blue light. "You will explain," he said. "The Council demands to know what happened." Lyra stood before him, her face calm. "The beast looked at me and remembered something older than fear." Tivar tilted his head, confused. "You mean it recognized your species?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe it saw what created us." The professor's glow dimmed. "Do you realize how many civilizations have failed that test? Even the predators of Rith and the warborn of Valon broke under that creature's gaze." "You are different." Lyra said nothing. Her eyes moved to the large monitor showing the beast in its containment dome. It paced back and forth, restless, but it hadn't attacked since the incident. Every time a researcher entered the chamber, it ignored them completely. But when Lyra walked by, it froze. Later that night, a small reptilian student named Keth approached her in the study hall. His scales shimmered green under the soft light. "You scared it," he whispered. "The fear eater. I didn't think that was possible." Lyra looked up from her notes. "I didn't scare it," she said. "It remembered something it shouldn't have." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, searching for words. "Where I come from, everything learns to survive by fear, even the ones that hunt us. Maybe the beast was made by someone who thought fear was strength. But fear fades. Instinct doesn't. Keth frowned, clearly not understanding. You talk like fear is nothing. She smiled faintly. It isn't nothing. It's fuel, but only if you learn to burn it right. As they spoke, alarms blared through the academy. Students looked up in confusion. A metallic voice echoed through the halls. Containment breach. Section 12. Unauthorized entity detected. Lyra's blood turned cold. Section 12 was the HFY chamber. She ran. By the time she reached the observation deck, guards were flooding the corridors. The massive doors had been torn open. Inside, the beast was gone. Tavar stood at the controls, his usually calm form flickering with fractured light. It escaped through the ventilation shafts. How could it have known the path? Lyra stared at the broken glass, the deep claw marks on the walls. Because it wasn't trying to escape, she said. It was looking for something. The professor turned toward her. For what? She didn't answer. Her mind raced. Every time it looked at her, it hadn't shown anger. It had shown understanding. She thought of Earth's creatures, the wolves that followed human hunters, the crows that learned their faces. The beast wasn't wild anymore. It had remembered her. The academy went into lockdown. Search drones flew through corridors. Students were escorted to safety. Lyra ignored the warnings and slipped away into the lower maintenance tunnels. The metal air smelled like coolant and ozone. Her boots echoed in the dark. Then she heard it, the low, heavy sound of breathing. The HFY was there, crouched in the shadows. Its silver eyes glowed faintly. Lyra didn't move. Neither did it. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. The creature made a soft growl, low and uncertain. They made you to frighten us, Lyra said. But you don't want to hurt anyone, do you? It tilted its massive head. You were made by them, she continued. The council, maybe even before the academy existed. A tool, a weapon to measure what others feared. The creature lowered itself slowly, its posture almost submissive. Lyra stepped closer, careful and steady. They built you to remind the galaxy what fear feels like. But you're tired of being their lesson. The HFY blinked once. Lyra reached out her hand, and for a second her reflection appeared in its metallic eyes. Small, fragile, human. Then it lowered its head. Behind her, armed guards burst into the corridor. Step away from it, one shouted. The beast didn't move. Lyra turned toward them. Don't shoot. It's not hostile. But the guards didn't listen. They fired a stun pulse. The energy crackled through the air, slamming into the beast. It roared and swung its claws, tearing into the walls but never striking her. Tavar arrived seconds later. Stand down, he ordered. The guards hesitated, lowering their weapons. Lyra looked back at him. You can't cage something that was made to fear freedom. Tavar stared at her, silent. The creature finally collapsed, its body twitching as the energy drained from it. Lyra knelt beside it, pressing her hand against its rough skin. They'll never understand you, she whispered. But I do. When she stood, her expression was unreadable. The professor approached carefully. You risked your life. Why? Lyra looked through the corridor window where the nebula glowed red like a beating heart. Because it's not the monster, she said quietly. We are. Hours later, deep within the council chamber, a report flickered across holographic screens. It showed the human student kneeling beside the subdued beast, hand on its hide. The council members whispered among themselves. Her presence altered the creature's behavior, one said. This is dangerous. Another replied, no, this is proof. Humanity carries something that defies control. And as the transmission ended, the speaker of the council leaned forward, its voice soft and cold. Then we will control her instead. Far away, Lyra sat in her quarters, unaware of the new orders being written in secret. She looked out at the stars and whispered, You can't cage what doesn't fear the dark. Outside the window, the HFY beast's transport ship began to move toward the council station, bound for testing. But even through its sedation, it twitched. Its instincts were awake again. It remembered her eyes. It remembered Earth. And it was learning something the galaxy had long forgotten, what it meant to be human. The human defense grid came online with a thunderous pulse that shook the black sea of space. From the outer orbit of Earth, the blue glow of the planetary shields shimmered like a stormy aurora. On the command deck of the Terran defense vessel, Resolute, Captain Mara Halen stood with her arms folded, watching the sensor feeds as alien signatures multiplied across the holomap. Thousands of ships formed a crescent wall beyond the moon's shadow, each one belonging to the Drenkai Dominion, the same species that had once laughed at humanity's entry into the Galactic Council. Their fleet blotted out the stars. The comms officer turned pale. "Captain, their lead dreadnought just opened its main reactor bay. It's charging something huge." Mara narrowed her eyes. "They're testing us." "No, ma'am," the officer said, trembling. "They're preparing to fire." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The Dominion's weapon arrays lit up like twin suns, each ready to unleash a pulse that could split a planet's crust. Across the solar system, Earth citizens watched the live feed. Panic rippled through the cities as the Council's representatives transmitted their hollow condolences, claiming that Earth had brought this upon itself by refusing integration protocols. But in the command room, Mara didn't blink. "Send the signal." The tactical AI obeyed instantly. In the void between Earth and the alien fleet, a small metallic sphere shimmered, no bigger than a fighter craft. Its surface rippled like mercury, absorbing radar, light, and gravitational pull. Then it vanished. 3 seconds later, the Dominion's weapon arrays exploded. The dreadnought's core flared white, then imploded, dragging 3 of its escort ships into the blast. "Confirmed," said the weapons officer. "Quantum inversion successful." Their main battery folded in on itself. The bridge crew erupted in disbelief. Humanity had just made the first move against a galactic superpower, and won. But Mara wasn't celebrating. She stared at the burning wreckage drifting through the stars. "That was a warning," she said quietly. "Now they'll come for real." Far across the galaxy, on the Council's central world, the holographic chamber buzzed with uproar. Dozens of alien delegates shouted over one another, some calling for humanity's destruction, others for immediate negotiation. And in the center of it all, the human envoy, Elias Vorn, stood calm, his eyes cold as stone. "You judged us as primitives," he said, "but we adapted. The mistake you all made wasn't underestimating our weapons. It was underestimating our will to survive." The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the Council began to fear humanity not as a curiosity, but as an equal. Back at the Galactic Academy on the neutral world of Lissar Prime, the students watched the news unfold. The atmosphere was tense, electric. Every alien species was whispering about the Terrans, the Death World species that had just crippled a Dominion dreadnought. Among the students sat a human girl named Lyra Vale, silent and calm as the chaos swirled around her. She was the only human in the academy, a diplomatic experiment, they said. The Council wanted to study her behavior, her biology, her psychology. She was supposed to represent peace, but deep down, everyone feared her kind. Her alien classmates stared from a distance, their scales, fur, and exoskeletons twitching in discomfort. No one dared sit too close. Only one student, a crystalline being named Solon, tried to talk to her, mostly out of curiosity. "You must be proud," Solon said, his voice vibrating like glass chimes. "Your people have shown the galaxy your power." Lyra didn't look up. "It's not pride," she said softly. "It's survival. We don't start wars, Solon, we end them." The class door slid open. A deep mechanical growl filled the hall as the instructor entered. A tall, scaled alien with cold orange eyes. Behind him came a creature that made the room go still. It was nearly 4 meters tall, wrapped in dark bioarmor with claws that looked like living blades. Its breath hissed through vents along its chest and its eyes glowed like molten gold. "Today's lesson," the instructor said, "is about comparative fear responses. This creature is bred to evoke maximum terror. Observe and record your physiological data." The beast scanned the class. Even the bravest students froze, some trembling, others hiding their faces. Then it turned toward Lyra. The room held its breath, the creature's eyes locked with hers. The sensors began to hum, capturing every detail: heart rate, thermal readings, emotional spikes. But something went wrong. The creature hesitated. Its nostrils flared. Then, in front of everyone, it stepped back. The instructor's jaw tightened. "Continue the test," he ordered. But the beast didn't move. Its golden eyes narrowed, its body trembling. It looked at Lyra as though it saw something that the others couldn't. Something that terrified even it. Lyra finally looked up, calm and unblinking. "You shouldn't have brought that thing near me," she said quietly. Her words echoed in the silent room. The instructor snarled, "Explain yourself, human." But Lyra didn't answer. She just stared back at the creature, her voice steady. "Where I come from, monsters like that don't hunt us. They run." The beast suddenly roared and threw itself backward, smashing through the observation wall. Alarms screamed. Students scattered as the creature fled into the corridor, crushing metal panels underfoot. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn. The instructor shouted orders, but Lyra remained seated, her eyes calm. The fear that had filled the air moments ago now clung to everyone else, but not her. Later, as emergency teams tried to contain the escaped creature, Lyra sat in the interrogation room, silent as the Academy's headmasters questioned her. They wanted to know what she had done, how she had triggered that reaction. "I didn't do anything," she said. "It looked at me and saw something it couldn't understand. Maybe something older than fear." One of the headmasters leaned closer. "What are you, girl?" Lyra looked up slowly. "Human," she said. Outside, the stars over Lisar Prime shimmered like cold fire. Somewhere in the dark between systems, the Drenkai fleet regrouped. They had lost a dreadnought to human trickery, and now they wanted revenge. Their admiral snarled as he watched intercepted human broadcasts. "They think themselves strong," he hissed. "Let them. We'll show them what real power is." But as his fleet prepared for warp, an encrypted message appeared on his console. It contained only a single line signed by Earth's Defense Command. "We're already behind you." The admiral froze. His sensors flared with alarms. Behind his fleet, hundreds of human stealth vessels decloaked, each armed, silent, and ready. The first strike of the Second Terran War had already begun, and back at the Academy, Lyra Vale felt something shift in her chest. A quiet pulse, a memory of home whispering through her blood. The beast's fear wasn't random. It was recognition. The galaxy had always called Earth a death world, but no one had ever asked why. Now they were about to find out. The void beyond Mars rippled with the heat of engines. Alien warships, black and massive, moved in formation toward the inner planets. Their hulls carried the mark of the Drenkai Dominion, the most feared military in the known galaxy. The fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Thousands of vessels, billions of tons of firepower. And their target was Earth. On board the Terran flagship Resolute, Captain Mara Halen watched the display in silence. The holographic table showed the Dominion fleet advancing in 3 wedges, tightening their approach to the Sol system. Their movements were perfect, a mechanical ballet of precision and arrogance. The aliens thought the battle was already won. "Report," Mara said quietly. The tactical officer's voice shook. "Their primary weapons are charging. Time to range, 3 minutes." The bridge trembled as the fleet powered its engines. Across the Sol system, human ships emerged from stealth fields. Destroyers near Venus, missile carriers behind Jupiter, and gravity cruisers in Earth's shadow. The humans were hopelessly outnumbered, but they weren't here to fight a fair war. In the silence of the command deck, Mara gave the order. "Activate the veil." At her command, hundreds of Terran ships emitted a strange low hum. Space itself seemed to bend, the stars warping into spirals of light. The Dominion sensors blinked, and then lost all readings. The humans had vanished. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet. Where did they go? The Drenkai commander snarled. No one could answer. Their scanners showed nothing but static. But in that static, hidden deep inside the folds of warped space, the Terran fleet watched, every ship cloaked within a shifting bubble of gravitational distortion. On the Resolute, the AI spoke. "They're blind, Captain. They can't see us." "Good," Mara said. "Let's show them why they should have stayed away from our home." The first human strike hit like thunder. A swarm of kinetic projectiles, simple tungsten rods, fell through space faster than light could register. They tore through the enemy's lead formation, punching holes clean through the dreadnoughts. The Dominion shields flickered, then failed. Dozens of ships broke apart, silent explosions scattering debris across the void. The aliens fired back wildly, their plasma cannons blazing through empty space. But there was nothing to hit, only the echo of human weapons appearing from nowhere. On Earth, every screen in every city showed the live feed. People watched in awe as their fleet outmaneuvered a galactic empire. For the first time in history, Humanity wasn't the hunted. They were the hunters. At the Galactic Council's headquarters, chaos erupted. Alien representatives shouted, their voices full of panic. The Dominion was a founding power, unstoppable for centuries. And yet the Deathworlders, the species once considered primitive, were turning them to ash. The human envoy, Elias Vorn, stood at the center of the chamber. "You wanted to know what makes us dangerous," he said calmly. "Now you do." Back on Lissar Prime, the alien academy was empty except for a few terrified staff. The students had been evacuated after the Beast incident, but one human still remained, Lyra Vale. She stood on the academy roof looking up at the alien sky. The stars shimmered red, reflecting the war that burned across the galaxy. She could feel it, the pulse of humanity spreading like fire through the void. Every battle, every heartbeat, every choice that brought them to this moment. Her comlink buzzed. A secure message flashed on the screen. "Transmission from Resolute," she answered. Mara's voice came through, calm and steady despite the chaos. "Lyra, the Council is panicking. The Dominion is falling apart, but they'll come for you next. You're proof of what we are." "I'm ready," Lyra said softly. "They won't understand until it's too late." Above Lissar Prime, the night broke apart as Dominion escape ships entered orbit. They weren't there for conquest, and they were fleeing. Their war fleet had been shattered by the humans' counterattack, but the humans hadn't stopped. The Terran fleet had jumped after them, chasing the Dominion through their own territory. For the first time in history, Earth was on the offensive. On board the Dominion flagship, the alien admiral raged, his claws tearing at the command console. "They can't do this. They're a Deathworld species. They shouldn't have this power." His officers stayed silent. Fear flickered in their eyes. One whispered, "Maybe that's why they do." The admiral's ship jolted as something massive appeared ahead. A single Terran ship, alone and silent, blocking their path. It wasn't even a battleship. It was small, sleek, with no visible weapons. The admiral laughed bitterly. "One ship? That's all they send?" Then the Terran ship opened fire. Not with plasma, not with missiles, but with gravity itself. Space folded, and the Dominion fleet's own momentum turned against them. Their engines twisted, their armor bent inward. The admiral's laughter turned into a scream as his ship collapsed like tin under an invisible hand. The Resolute's AI reported calmly. "Enemy command vessel neutralized." Mara looked out at the burning wreckage. "Then it's done," she said quietly. For the first time in history, Earth stands free. But it wasn't over. At the Academy, alarms blared as a Dominion strike ship broke through orbit and descended toward the surface. Its mission was simple: capture the human girl. Lyra watched as the ship descended, its engines shaking the towers. The guards tried to stop it, but the vessel cut through the campus, landing in a burst of flame. The ramp opened and armored soldiers poured out. She didn't move. She just stood there, wine blowing through her hair, eyes calm. The soldiers surrounded her. One of them raised his weapon. "On your knees, human." Lyra looked up slowly. Her voice was steady. "You shouldn't have come here." A faint hum filled the air, low, vibrating through the stone beneath their feet. The soldiers glanced around, confused. Then one by one their weapons began to shake. Metal bent. The ground trembled. The lead soldier shouted, "What are you?" He never finished. The ship behind them groaned, its hull twisting inward as if crushed by invisible pressure. The metal screamed, folding like paper. When it was over, silence fell. The entire strike team lay motionless, their armor cracked, their ship reduced to rubble. Lyra stood alone in the smoke, her eyes glowing faintly. She turned toward the sky. Through the haze, she could see the distant battle still raging, streaks of light where fleets clashed in orbit. But she knew it was ending. The galaxy would remember this night. Hours later, the war was declared over. The Drenkai Dominion had surrendered. Their surviving ships broadcast unconditional retreat. The Council, shaken and divided, voted to grant Earth full sovereignty and equal standing. Humanity was no longer a curiosity. They were a power. On the Resolute, Mara watched the transmission of the surrender. Her crew cheered, but she didn't smile. She looked out at the stars, thinking of everything they'd lost to get here. "We didn't win because we were stronger," she said quietly. "We won because we refused to die." Back on Lissar Prime, the Academy lay silent. The halls were cracked and empty. Lyra walked through them alone, her reflection gliding over the shattered glass. She stopped where the beast's cage once stood. The air still smelled of ozone and fear. She touched the broken bars and whispered, "You were right to step back." Then she looked up at the stars. The same stars now filled with Terran ships patrolling a galaxy that finally understood the truth. Humans were no longer the prey. The galaxy had called Earth a death world. But now every species would remember what that truly meant. Not that humanity lived among monsters, but that it had learned to become something even monsters feared. And somewhere out there, in the deep dark between stars, the next threat was already watching. But this time, when it came, the galaxy would not tremble for itself. It would tremble for them.